The crack of my mother's palm against my face silenced the grand ballroom in an instant. Champagne flutes froze mid-toast, forks hovered above plates of barely touched salmon, and 300 pairs of eyes locked onto the spectacle unfolding center stage. "You selfish, ungrateful bitch," my mother hissed, her designer bracelet catching the spotlight as she pointed a trembling finger at me. "After everything we've sacrificed for you." The golden trophy I'd been clutching just moments before, my validation, my vindication, clattered to the floor, the sound echoing through the stunned silence.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
My name is Vanessa Mitchell, and tonight, my moment of professional triumph just became a public family execution. I stood frozen under the harsh stage lights, the left side of my face burning as if branded. 3 years of exhausting work, countless sleepless nights fueled by nothing but black coffee and sheer determination, all culminating in this moment, being named Entrepreneur of the Year by the Regional Business Alliance. And now, with one slap, my mother had managed to overshadow all of it. Somewhere in the audience a camera flashed, then another. This would be tomorrow's headline, not my achievement. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions threatening to tear me apart from the inside, "this isn't the place." "When is the place, Vanessa?" she demanded, her voice carrying across the ballroom's perfect acoustics. "When you've completely abandoned your family? When your sister loses everything because of your selfishness?" I could see my sister Meredith standing at the edge of the stage, her expression a complex mix of embarrassment and vindication. Unlike me, in my carefully tailored black suit, practical, professional, she wore a designer dress that probably cost more than most people in this room made in a month. She'd never worked a day in her life, floating from one passion project to another, always cushioned by our parents' seemingly endless financial support. "Ladies, please." The event host stepped forward, his professional smile strained as he tried to salvage what remained of the evening's decorum. "Perhaps we could—" "No," my mother cut him off, eyes never leaving mine. "My daughter needs to understand what family means. Meredith has a brilliant business plan. She just needs funding to make it happen. Funding that Vanessa—" She practically spat my name, refuses to provide despite having more money than she knows what to do with. I looked out at the audience, spotting my team members, my mentors, the clients who had believed in me when nobody else did. They were witnessing this family drama unfold in real time, and I could see the mix of sympathy and second-hand embarrassment on their faces. "A brilliant business plan," I repeated, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "Like her brilliant luxury pet spa that lasted all of 2 months, or her revolutionary organic food delivery service that never delivered a single meal? Each failure funded by your retirement savings while I worked 2 jobs to put myself through business school. You've always been jealous of your sister's vision," my mother snapped. "Vision requires follow-through," I replied, straightening my shoulders. "It requires work, commitment, sacrifice, things Meredith knows nothing about." Meredith stepped forward then, her eyes glinting with the righteous indignation she'd perfected since childhood. "Just because you had to claw your way up doesn't mean everyone has to struggle, Vanessa. Some of us have actual innovative ideas, not just—" She waved dismissively at the stage backdrop featuring my company logo. "Boring tech solutions that anyone could have thought of. Anyone could have thought of it. But no one did. Not until I spent 18 months developing the algorithm that now helped small businesses reduce their logistics costs by an average of 42%. The algorithm that had just won me this award. The algorithm that had investors lining up to fund our expansion." My father finally joined the fray, stepping onto the stage with that familiar expression of disappointed authority that had kept me in line for most of my childhood. Vanessa, be reasonable. Your sister's business plan is solid. She just needs seed funding to attract serious investors. 400,000 is nothing to you now. 400,000? I echoed, genuinely shocked. Last week it was 200. The scope expanded, Meredith replied smoothly. We're thinking bigger now. Of course you are, I said. Because why think small when someone else is footing the bill? I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room. Colleagues, competitors, journalists. This was supposed to be the crowning moment of my career so far, proof that all the sacrifices had been worth it. Instead, it had devolved into a family showdown. That was probably being live tweeted as we spoke. 400,000 isn't nothing to me, I said, my voice growing stronger. It's 10 new jobs I can create. It's expanding to 2 new cities. It's security for the 28 employees who depend on me to make smart decisions with our capital. Always so dramatic, my mother sighed, rolling her eyes. It's just money. Family is more important than money. Just money? The words hit like another slap. Just the money I saved by living in an apartment with 3 roommates and no heat for 2 winters. Just the money I earned coding until 3 a.m. after working my day job. Just the money I scraped together instead of taking vacations, buying new clothes, or even going out for dinner. I looked directly at my sister. You're right, Mom. Family is more important than money. So why is it that every time Meredith needs something, you expect me to be the one to sacrifice? Why is her happiness always prioritized over mine? Because you're stronger, my mother exploded, finally giving voice to the truth that had shaped our family dynamic for as long as I could remember. You've always been able to take care of yourself. Meredith needs our support. And there it was. The unvarnished truth I'd always known, but they'd never admitted so blatantly. I was stronger because I had to be. From the moment Meredith was born, I became the family afterthought, the reliable one, the one who would always understand, always give in, always sacrifice. I looked down at my award lying on the stage floor. The culmination of years of work dismissed in an instant because Meredith had another brilliant idea. I bent down and picked it up, feeling its weight in my hands. This was mine. I had earned it, and I was done apologizing for my success. Get out, I said quietly, my voice carrying across the now silent room. All of you, get out of my award. Ceremony? Vanessa, my father started, but I cut him off. No. I built this company without your help, without your support, without your belief in me. You don't get to come here now and demand I hand over nearly $500,000 to Meredith. Because she's decided this is her latest dream. Meredith's face contorted with anger. You selfish bitch. You've always tried to overshadow me, always had to prove you're better than me. Well, guess what? Nobody likes you. You're just a cold, calculating robot who got lucky with some stupid algorithm. I gestured to the event security team, waiting discreetly at the edges of the stage. Please escort my family out. They're no longer welcome here. As they were being led away, my mother turned back, her face a mask of righteous indignation. You'll regret this, Vanessa. When your little company fails, don't come crying to us. I watched them leave, my heart pounding, but my resolve stronger than ever. Once they were gone, I turned to the audience, who were still watching in stunned silence. I apologize for the interruption, I said, forcing a smile and raising my award. This belongs to my entire team at Mitchell Analytics. Without their dedication, innovation, and hard work, none of what we've achieved would be possible. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. I believe dessert is about to be served, and I've been told the chocolate mousse is exceptional. The room gradually came back to life with nervous laughter and the resumption of conversations, though I could still feel the eyes on me, hear the whispers behind raised hands. My marketing director, Alex, approached with concern, etched on his face. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I'm fine, I replied, straightening my jacket. Actually, I'm better than fine. I think I finally broke free.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, networking, and forced smiles. I gave the expected interviews, accepted the expected praise, and pretended that my face wasn't still burning from my mother's hand. By the time the last guest left, I was emotionally and physically exhausted, operating on autopilot and the last dregs of adrenaline. I sat alone at what had been the head table, now littered with empty glasses and abandoned dessert plates, when my phone buzzed with a text from Meredith. "Mom and Dad are furious. You've always been so selfish. Don't think this is over." I stared at the message, feeling an odd sense of calm wash over me. They were right about one thing. This wasn't over, but not in the way they thought. The next morning, I arrived at my office before any of my employees. The early dawn light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the open workspace. This office, this company, I had built it all from nothing. From a concept sketched on napkins in a 24-hour diner to a thriving business employing nearly 30 people, I sat at my desk and began drafting an email to my lawyer. It was time to formally protect what I'd built, to ensure my family could never gain access to company funds or decisions. As I typed, I remembered all the times I'd given in to their demands, all the times I'd sacrificed my own dreams to support Meredith's latest whim. Not anymore. By the time my team started arriving, I had already outlined new company bylaws restricting ownership and transfer of shares. I had also initiated the process of removing my parents as my emergency contacts and beneficiaries from all documents related to the company. Alex found me still at my desk, surrounded by paperwork and empty coffee cups. "You're here early," he said, placing a fresh latte on my desk. "About last night." "Last night was exactly what I needed," I interrupted, looking up at him. "Sometimes you need a public showdown to finally see things clearly." He sat down across from me, his expression serious. "Your sister's been calling the office all morning. Something about an investor meeting this afternoon. She says you promised to be there." I couldn't help but laugh. "Of course she does. Block her number. Block all their numbers. From now on, any communication from my family goes through legal." "Are you sure?" Alex asked, though I could see approval in his eyes. "They're still your family." "No," I said firmly. "Family doesn't try to take what you've built. Family doesn't demand you sacrifice your dreams for theirs. Family supports you, believes in you, celebrates your success instead of trying to steal it." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. The same view I'd gazed at during countless late nights working, dreaming, building. I spent my whole life trying to be the daughter they wanted, the sister Meredith needed. It's time I focused on being the person I want to be. Alex nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. "So what's next?" I turned back from the window, feeling lighter than I had in years. Next, we grow, we expand, we succeed on our own terms. What I didn't know then was that my family wasn't done trying to get their hands on my success, and that Meredith's investors were about to change everything in ways none of us could have anticipated. The video hit social media 3 hours after I arrived at the office. Someone had captured the entire confrontation on their phone. My mother's. Slap, her venomous words, Meredith's entitlement, my defiance, all preserved in 1080p for the world to see. By noon, it had over 100,000 views and was climbing. Entrepreneur Slapped was trending, alongside family drama and, more positively, Stand Your Ground. I sat in my office, blinds drawn, watching the view count climb with a strange detachment. There's something oddly liberating about your worst fear being realized. The public humiliation I dreaded had happened, and yet I was still standing, still breathing, still running my company. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Diane, As a PR director, tablet in hand and concern etched on her face. "I assume you've seen it," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Hard to miss," I replied, closing my laptop. "What's the damage assessment?" Diane surprised me with a small smile. "Actually, it's not what you might think. The public response is overwhelmingly in your favor. You're becoming something of a symbol for entrepreneurs who've had to fight against unsupportive families." She handed me her tablet, open to a series of comments. The way she kept her composure after being slapped. Queen behavior. When she said, "I built this without your help, support, or belief in me," I felt that. This is every woman who's been told to make herself smaller so someone else can shine. I scrolled through dozens more similar comments, a knot in my throat loosening with each one. This is unexpected. 3 major business publications want interviews. The Women's Entrepreneurial Alliance wants you to speak at their conference next month. And as Diane hesitated, her professional demeanor slipping for a moment, "People are sharing their own stories. You've struck a nerve, Vanessa." She was right. The comment section was filled with people recounting their own experiences of family members devaluing their work, demanding handouts from their success, or expecting them to fund relatives' ventures. I wasn't alone. Far from it. "What do you want to do?" Diane asked. I considered for a moment. The instinct to hide, to wait for this to blow over, was strong. But something else was stronger, the realization that my story could actually help. Others? Schedule the interviews, I decided. But I want to focus on the company, not just the drama, and let's donate to some organizations supporting young entrepreneurs from difficult backgrounds. Diane nodded approvingly and made notes. "There's something else you should know. Your sister is doing interviews too." My stomach tightened. Of course she is. She's portraying herself as the misunderstood visionary whose own sister is too jealous. To support her dreams, she's launching a crowdfunding campaign for her business today. I laughed, despite myself. Always the opportunist. What's the brilliant idea this time? Something called Spotlight, an app that connects aspiring performers with casting directors. She's claiming it will democratize the entertainment industry. Let me guess, she has no technical background, no industry connections, and no actual prototype. She has a mock-up designed by a freelancer and a group of investors who've expressed interest contingent on her raising initial capital. The familiar pattern. Meredith's enthusiasm without expertise, vision without follow-through, all bundled with the expectation that others would do the actual work while she took the credit. "Ignore it," I said firmly. "We focus on our work, not her theatrics. Let her crowdfunding campaign live or die on its own merits." The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, decisions, and carefully crafted responses to the media firestorm. By evening, I was exhausted but clear-headed. I declined several invitations to discuss the situation over drinks, needing space to process everything that had happened. Instead, I drove to the small lake at the edge of the city, a place I'd discovered during my early days of bootstrapping the company. I'd come here often then, when I couldn't afford the luxury of a proper vacation, to sit by the water and dream about what my company could become. The sunset painted the lake in shades of orange and gold as I sat on a weathered bench. The events of the past 24 hours replaying in my mind. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "You think you're so clever. Mom and Dad may be fooled by your little success story, but I know what you really are. The investors are meeting tomorrow. You might want to be there if you care about your precious reputation. 4 p.m. the Grayson Hotel. Meredith, always with the vague threats." I started to type a dismissive response, then stopped. Something about this felt different, more desperate, more dangerous. Instead of responding, I forwarded the message to my lawyer with a simple question. Should I be concerned? His response came quickly. Don't engage. But yes, let's discuss this in the morning. I pocketed my phone and stared out at the darkening water. What investors would meet with Meredith after seeing that viral video, and why would my presence be necessary unless... The realization hit me like ice water. She was using my name, my company's reputation, or both, to lure investors. It wouldn't be the first time she'd implied connections she didn't have. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned in my apartment, mind racing with possibilities, each more concerning than the last. By morning, I had made a decision. I would attend this mysterious investor meeting, not to help Meredith, but to protect myself and my company. My lawyer, James, arrived at my office early, his normally calm demeanor tinged with concern. "I've done some digging," he said without preamble. "The investors meeting with your sister aren't typical venture capitalists. They're from Helix Capital." The name rang a faint bell. "The firm with those questionable overseas investments?" James nodded grimly. "They specialize in high-risk ventures. They've been investigated twice for fraud, though nothing was proven. Their typical approach is to invest in companies with connections to established successful businesses. And Meredith is selling them on a connection to Mitchell Analytics," I finished, the picture becoming clearer. "Most likely. The question is how far she's gone in making that claim. Has she implied partnership, resource sharing, your personal involvement?" I thought of all the times Meredith had exaggerated or outright fabricated to get what she wanted. She could be promising them anything. James began outlining our options: legal letters, cease and desist warnings, potential suits for misrepresentation. All necessary, but all reactive. I need to know what she's telling them, I decided. I'm going to that meeting. "That's extremely risky," James cautioned. "If you show up, it could actually validate whatever claims she's making about your involvement." "Not if I make it absolutely clear I'm there to correct the record." I stood up, decision made. "Draft a statement I can deliver. Something that protects us legally while making it crystal clear that Mitchell Analytics has no connection to her venture." James reluctantly agreed, and we spent the morning crafting the perfect statement. Professional, unambiguous, and just. Threatening enough to make any legitimate investor think twice. As 4 o'clock approached, I found myself in the sleek lobby of the Grayson Hotel, dressed in my most authoritative charcoal suit, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. I was projecting confidence, but my pounding heart betrayed my nerves. The hotel's conference level was hushed and elegant. I followed the discreet signs to Spotlight Investments' private meeting and paused outside the closed door, hearing Meredith's animated voice through the wood. Revolutionary approach to talent discovery. We've already secured partnership with a leading tech firm for the infrastructure. My sister's company. That was all I needed to hear. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, immediately commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Meredith froze mid-sentence, her practiced pitch dying on her lips. Around a gleaming table sat 5 people, 3 men and 2 women in expensive suits, all with the sharp, evaluating eyes of predators assessing prey. "I apologize for the interruption," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I'm Vanessa Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Analytics. I understand my company is being discussed as part of this investment opportunity, and I felt it necessary to clarify some apparent misconceptions." A distinguished man with silver temples and cold eyes spoke first. "Ms. Mitchell, how unexpected. Your sister was just explaining how your technology would provide the backbone for Spotlight's matching algorithm." I met his gaze unflinchingly. "Then I'm afraid my sister has misled you. Mitchell Analytics has no partnership, affiliation, or involvement with Spotlight, nor will it in the future." Meredith recovered quickly, her smile tight. "Vanessa is being modest. We've discussed collaboration extensively." "We have never had such discussions," I interrupted, placing my business card before each investor. My company's proprietary algorithms are not available for licensing or adaptation for your project. Any claims to the contrary are false. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. One of the women, sharp-featured with calculating eyes, leaned forward. Ms. Mitchell, Vanessa, perhaps this is a family misunderstanding. The potential synergy between established analytics and entertainment networking is precisely what interested us. There is no misunderstanding, I replied, and to ensure complete clarity, I've prepared a formal statement. I removed James's carefully worded document from my portfolio and placed it on the table. This statement confirms that Mitchell Analytics has no business relationship with Meredith Mitchell or any venture called Spotlight. We will pursue legal action against any party that claims or implies such a relationship exists. I've had my legal team copy this to each of your corporate offices. The bluff about sending it to their offices worked. I could see the unease spreading across their faces. No one likes discovering they've been misled, especially not people who prided themselves on due diligence. Meredith's face had transformed from shock to fury. "You bitch!" she hissed. "You couldn't stand to see me succeed, could you?" I ignored her, addressing the investors directly. I understand the appeal of associating with a successful company, but I built Mitchell Analytics through integrity and genuine innovation. I hope you'll demand the same from all your investment opportunities. I turned to leave, having said what I came to say when the silver-haired man spoke again. "Actually, Ms. Mitchell, Vanessa, perhaps we've been approaching this from the wrong angle. Your company's success speaks for itself. We'd be interested in discussing direct investment opportunities with Mitchell Analytics instead." I paused, genuinely surprised by the pivot. For a brief moment I considered it, then I remembered James's warnings about Helix Capital. "I appreciate the interest, but we're not seeking additional investment at this time. Our current growth strategy is fully funded." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everyone has a price, Ms. Mitchell. We could offer resources beyond mere capital." Something in his tone sent a warning shiver down my spine. This wasn't just about money. "Thank you, but my answer is final. Good afternoon." I left without looking at Meredith, but I could feel her glare burning into my back as I walked out. In the elevator down to the lobby, I finally allowed myself to exhale, hands trembling slightly with the aftermath of adrenaline. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "How did it go?" I typed back, "Handled, but something feels off. Helix seemed too interested in our company. Research them deeper." The lobby was bustling with late afternoon activity as I emerged from the elevator. I was heading for the exit when I spotted a familiar figure seated in the bar area. My father, nursing what appeared to be a whiskey, his expression uncharacteristically defeated. I hesitated, torn between walking past and confronting him. Curiosity won. I changed direction and approached his table, waiting for Meredith's triumphant return. He looked up, startled, then resigned. "Vanessa, were you part of this, Dad? Helping her lie to investors about connections to my company?" He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "I told her it was a mistake. That surprised me." "You did? I may have overestimated the viability of her business plan." He looked older suddenly, the harsh bar lighting accentuating every line on his face. "After your video went viral, I reviewed it more carefully. The technical requirements alone would require actual expertise," I finished. "Something neither. Have you considered important before asking for $400,000? He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Your mother still believes in her. She mortgaged the house to give Meredith seed money." The revelation hit me hard. "She what? Their retirement fund wasn't enough? After everything that's happened, you're still enabling her." "She's my daughter," he said simply, as if that explained everything. "So am I," I replied. "But you've never mortgaged anything for me." He didn't respond, and I realized there was nothing. More to say. I turned to leave, then paused. Those investors up there, they're dangerous. Not just financially, you should tell Meredith to stay away from them. My father looked up, something like genuine concern crossing his face. What do you mean dangerous? I mean their reputation suggests they don't just take financial losses lightly, and now they know she's been dishonest with them. I left him with that sobering thought, exiting into the late afternoon sunlight. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. James again. I answered immediately. You were right to be suspicious, he said without preamble. Helix Capital is a front for larger interests. They use their investments to gain access to valuable intellectual property, then exploit legal loopholes to essentially hijack promising technologies. The silver-haired man's words echoed in my mind. Everyone has a price. We could offer resources beyond mere capital. They wanted our algorithm, I realized aloud, most likely, but there's more. They have connections to several companies that would be direct competitors to Mitchell Analytics if they had similar technology. This wasn't just about investing in your sister's dubious startup. It was about getting close to you. Cold realization washed over me. And Meredith led them right to us. Intentionally or not, James agreed. I'm putting together a full brief on protective measures we should take, but for now, be careful. These aren't people who give up easily. I hung up and sat in my car, mind racing. What had started as a family drama had morphed into something far more dangerous. I'd been focused on protecting my company from Meredith's entitlement, but now there were sharks circling, and my sister had unwittingly chummed the waters. As I started the engine, a new text from Meredith appeared on my phone. You ruined everything, again. Hope you're happy now that no one will fund my company. But this isn't over. Those investors were more interested in what you're doing anyway. Maybe I'll just tell them everything I know about your precious algorithm. I stared at the message, a new kind of fear taking root. Meredith had grown up hearing me talk about my work. She'd been present for countless family dinners where I'd discussed early versions of my ideas. She didn't understand the technology, but she knew just enough to be dangerous, especially if she was willing to share that information with people like Helix Capital. The family drama that had publicly humiliated me at my award ceremony wasn't just embarrassing anymore. It had become a genuine threat to everything I'd built, and judging by her message, Meredith was angry enough to burn it all down, not realizing she'd be consumed in the flames too. I pulled away from the curb, already formulating a plan. I needed to protect my company, my employees, and my work. But I also needed to somehow make Meredith understand the danger she was putting herself in, before her desperation to prove herself led to consequences none of us could control. The next 3 days passed in a blur of heightened security measures. James had convinced me to hire a digital security firm to audit our systems, install additional protections, and monitor for suspicious activity. Meanwhile, my phone remained silent. No more threats from Meredith, no calls from my parents, just an eerie calm that did nothing to ease my growing anxiety. I threw myself into work, finding comfort in the familiar challenges of running my company. We were finalizing a major contract with Westridge Industries that would expand our client base significantly and require bringing on at least 10 new employees. Under normal circumstances, I would have been elated. Now, it felt like one more vulnerability I needed to protect. You look like you haven't slept in days, Alex commented, dropping a thick folder on my desk. The candidate profiles for the new development team. HR needs your approval by tomorrow. I glanced at the folder without opening it. Thanks. I'll review them tonight. Tonight? Alex frowned. You've been here until midnight every day this week. Whatever's going on with your family and these Helix people, you can't handle it if you're running on fumes. He was right, of course. But admitting exhaustion felt dangerously close to admitting defeat. Before I could respond, Diane appeared in the doorway, her expression uncharacteristically hesitant. "Vanessa, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your grandmother." My head snapped up. "My grandmother? That's impossible. Both my grandmothers are dead." "She says her name is Eleanor Pierce. She's very insistent." The name sent a jolt through me. Eleanor Pierce, my mother's estranged aunt, a woman I'd met only twice in my life. The family rarely spoke of her, except in whispered tones tinged with disapproval. My mother had cut ties with her years ago for reasons never fully explained to me. "She's in her 70s?" I asked. "Silver hair, expensive clothes, probably looks like she could buy and sell everyone in this building." Diane nodded, and she made that very clear to reception. Should I send her away? Curiosity won out over caution. No, send her in. Moments later, Eleanor Pierce swept into my office with the confident grace of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Despite her age, she stood tall and elegant in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her silver hair was styled in a sophisticated bob, and sharp blue eyes, so similar to my own, assessed me with keen intelligence. "Vanessa," she said, her voice cultured but warm. "You've grown into quite the formidable woman." I stood, extending my hand professionally. "Miss Pierce, this is unexpected." She ignored my hand and instead embraced me briefly. "Eleanor, please." "And yes, I imagine it is. May we speak privately?" I nodded to Alex and Diane, who discreetly left, closing the door behind them. Eleanor took a seat across from me, placing an expensive leather handbag beside her. "I saw the video," she began without preamble. "Claudia slapping you at your award ceremony. Some things never change." The casual mention of my mother's name startled me. Few people called her Claudia anymore. She had insisted on Mrs. Mitchell for so long that even friends used it. "You came all the way here because you saw a viral video of my family drama?" Her lips curved in a slight smile. "I came because I recognized the look on your face when your mother struck you. It's the same look I saw in the mirror 50 years ago, the last time I spoke to my sister, your grandmother." I leaned back, trying to process this unexpected connection. "I don't understand." Eleanor opened her handbag and removed an old photograph, sliding it across the desk to me. It showed two young women, one unmistakably a younger version of Eleanor, the other bearing a striking resemblance to my mother, though with harder eyes. "Your grandmother Margaret and I were never close, but we maintained appearances for family's sake, until I refused to invest in one of her husband's schemes. He'd lost their savings on risky ventures, and I was their last hope to avoid bankruptcy." She tapped the photograph. "She slapped me at a family dinner when I refused. Called me selfish, heartless. Sound familiar?" The parallel was uncanny, sending a chill down my spine. Family history repeating itself, with one crucial difference. Her eyes locked with mine. I walked away completely, cut all ties, built my life and my company without looking back. "You're at that crossroads now." "You built a company?" This detail had never been mentioned in the rare family discussions about the mysterious Aunt Eleanor. "Pierce Financial. Perhaps you've heard of it." My jaw nearly dropped. Pierce Financial was one of the largest independent investment firms on the East Coast, known for both profitability and ethical standards. "You're that Eleanor Pierce," she nodded, a flicker of pride crossing her face. "The black sheep who became a wolf. And now I'm here because I've been watching your career with interest, Vanessa. From a distance, of course. Your mother would never have allowed me any influence in your life, so the viral video was my first glimpse of you in years, and it confirmed what I've suspected. You're repeating my path, but you're facing something I didn't. External threats stemming from family chaos." I studied her carefully, still unsure of her motives. "How do you know about that?" "I make it my business to know things, particularly about Helix Capital. Her expression hardened. They've attempted to infiltrate several companies in my portfolio over the years. Their methods are concerning. When I saw they were circling you, I decided it was time we finally met properly. The pieces started coming together. You've been tracking me professionally. I've been aware of your accomplishments. Your algorithm has tremendous potential beyond its current applications, potential that makes you a prime target for Helix and their backers. My suspicion must have shown on my face because Eleanor smiled wryly. You're wondering if I have an agenda? Good. You should question everyone's motives, especially family claiming to help you. But unlike your parents, I'm not here asking for money. Then what do you want? To offer you something I never had. An ally who understands both the family dynamics you're fighting and the business threats you're facing. She leaned forward, starting with information about who's really behind Helix Capital. For the next hour, Eleanor revealed a disturbing web of connections between Helix Capital and several international conglomerates with questionable ethics and reported ties to industrial espionage. According to her intelligence, which seemed remarkably thorough, Helix specialized in acquiring promising technologies through any means necessary, including leveraging personal conflicts. They research potential targets extensively, she explained. They likely knew about your family tensions before approaching Meredith. Your sister was just an entry point, the easiest way to get close to you and your algorithm. And now that I've publicly rejected them, they'll try another approach. These people don't give up easily. She pulled a flash drive from her bag and placed it on the desk. This contains documentation of their previous tactics, legal vulnerabilities you can exploit, and contact information for security specialists who've successfully countered them before. I stared at the flash drive, overwhelmed by both the information and the surreal nature of this unexpected family reunion. Why are you doing this? We're practically strangers. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, her composed exterior showing the first hint of emotion. Because 50 years ago, I walked away from a toxic family situation and never looked back. It was the right decision for me, but it came with costs I didn't anticipate. Loneliness, questions about what might have been, watching from a distance. As history repeated itself, and you think helping me changes that, I think you have a chance to write a different ending, one that protects what you've built without requiring complete severance from your family. She met my gaze directly. Unless that's what you want, in which case I can help with that too. I turned the flash drive over in my hand, considering her words. My mother never mentioned why you and my grandmother had a falling out. She just said you abandoned the family. Claudia was 12 when it happened. She only heard her mother's version, that I was selfish and cold for refusing to help in their time of need. A flash of old pain crossed Eleanor's face. She never knew about the 5 previous loans that were never repaid or the verbal abuse. When I suggested her father get professional financial help instead of chasing get-rich-quick schemes. Please don't make this worse by lying, I interrupted. I've seen the emails, Meredith. It was a bluff, but a calculated one. Her face crumpled, confirming my suspicion. I didn't know what else to do, she whimpered. After you humiliated me, at that meeting, they said the only way they'd still work with me was if I could provide insights into your algorithm. I thought it was just general information. James cleared his throat. Ms. Mitchell, what exactly did you share with Helix representatives? While Meredith haltingly explained her communications with Helix, which thankfully hadn't yet included actual code or specific technical details, I observed my parents. My father looked genuinely worried, while my mother kept glancing at Eleanor, with increasing suspicion. Finally, as Meredith finished her tearful explanation, my mother interrupted. Who did you say you were again? She asked Eleanor directly. Eleanor met her gaze calmly. I'm a business consultant specializing in corporate security and intellectual property protection. No, my mother said slowly. You look like—" Her eyes widened in sudden recognition. "Aunt Eleanor." The room fell silent. Eleanor smiled slightly. "Hello, Claudia. It's been a long time." My father looked confused. "Eleanor? Your estranged aunt? What is she doing here?" My mother stood, face flushing with anger. "How dare you come into my home? After all these years of turning your back on family? That's rich coming from the woman who slapped her daughter at an awards ceremony for refusing to bankroll another of her sister's failed ventures." Eleanor replied evenly. "Some family patterns deserve to be broken, don't you think?" I intervened before my mother could respond. "Eleanor has experience with Helix Capital. She's here to help us deal with the situation Meredith has created. A situation that threatens not just my company, but potentially this family's reputation as well." "We don't need her help," my mother insisted, though I noticed my father looked less certain. "Actually," James interjected, "given the severity of what Ms. Mitchell has described, I would strongly recommend accepting assistance from anyone with relevant expertise. Helix Capital has a documented history of using intimidation and blackmail." My father turned to Eleanor. "What do you suggest?" Over the next hour, a remarkable shift occurred, with Eleanor providing insights into Helix's methods and James outlining legal options. Even my mother grudgingly began participating in developing a strategy. Meredith, seeing the serious consequences of her actions for perhaps the first time, grew increasingly subdued. "The key," Eleanor explained, "is to demonstrate that Meredith has no access to the information they want, while making it clear that any attempt to use blackmail will result in immediate legal action and public exposure of their tactics, particularly damaging given the current investigation they're facing." "And what about Spotlight?" Meredith asked in a small voice. "My business." I exchanged glances with Eleanor, who gave me an encouraging nod. "I have a proposition," I said. "Mitchell Analytics is expanding. We need people in client relations, people who understand how to communicate technical concepts to non-technical clients." Meredith stared at me. "Are you offering me a job?" "An entry-level position with standard salary and benefits, no special treatment. You'd report to Alex, not me, and you'd be expected to meet the same standards as any other employee." "Why would you do that after everything that's happened?" she asked suspiciously. "3 reasons. First, it gives you a legitimate connection to Mitchell Analytics that explains your previous conversations with Helix without implying impropriety. Second, it removes you from their reach while giving you actual experience in a successful tech company. Third, I hesitated. "Despite everything, you're still my sister. I'd rather see you succeed than fail." The room fell silent as Meredith processed this unexpected offer. My mother opened her mouth to speak, likely to demand better terms, but Eleanor caught her eye and shook her head slightly. "It would be a real job?" Meredith asked finally, "with responsibilities and everything?" "A real job," I confirmed, "with performance reviews, professional development requirements, and consequences if you don't meet expectations, just like everyone else who works there." For perhaps the first time in her adult life, Meredith looked thoughtful rather than entitled. I need to think about it." "You have until tomorrow," I said. "After that, we proceed with legal action against Helix without you, which leaves you exposed to whatever tactics they choose to employ." As we prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. "This rift between us, can it be healed?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine regret in his eyes. "I don't know, Dad, but if Meredith actually commits to earning her way for once, it would be a start." In the car, Eleanor was quiet until we had driven some distance from my parents' house. "You handled that remarkably well," she said finally. "You protected your company while offering your sister a path to potential growth, without sacrificing your boundaries." "I had good advice," I replied. "Thank you for coming." Seeing you stand up to my mother after all these years, it helped." She smiled slightly. Family reconciliations are rarely so dramatic in real life, but seeing Claudia's face when she recognized me, she laughed softly. "Some satisfactions are worth waiting 50 years for. Will you stay in touch?" I asked, realizing how much I wanted that connection to continue. "I think it's time I got to know my great-niece properly," she replied, "especially since she seems to have inherited the best parts of the Pierce business acumen without the worst of the family flaws." As we drove back toward the city, I felt something shift inside me, a weight lifting that I hadn't fully acknowledged was there. The family drama was far from resolved, and the Helix threat would require vigilance for months to come. But for the first time since my mother's hand had struck my face at the award ceremony, I felt something approaching hope. Sometimes the allies we need come from unexpected places, and sometimes breaking free doesn't mean walking away entirely. It means establishing new terms for the relationships that shaped us, for better or worse. 1 year later, I stood at the podium of the Regional Business Alliance Gala. A sense of déjà vu washing over me. The same elegant ballroom, the same well-dressed crowd of industry leaders, the same prestigious award ceremony that had changed everything 12 months ago. But this time, as I surveyed the audience, I saw different faces in the front row. Eleanor sat at the center table, regal in midnight blue, a subtle smile playing at her lips. Beside her, surprisingly, was Meredith, hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a simple but professional dress rather than her usual designer excess. 9 months into her job at Mitchell Analytics, my sister had undergone a transformation that still occasionally caught me off guard. "It is my honor to present this year's Innovation Impact Award to Vanessa Mitchell," announced Diane, who had been promoted to Executive Director of Communications after her masterful handling of last year's viral incident. Under her leadership, Mitchell Analytics has not only expanded its revolutionary logistics algorithm to serve over 300 small businesses nationwide, but has pioneered the ethics in technology initiative that's becoming the industry standard. As I accepted the Crystal Award, different from last year's Golden Trophy but symbolically weightier, the applause was genuine. No family drama interrupted this moment. No slap echoed through the ballroom. Instead, I took a deep breath and began my speech. A year ago, I stood on this stage and experienced both triumph and humiliation in the span of 5 minutes. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the audience. The video was still referenced occasionally in business circles. What you didn't see in that viral clip was what happened afterward. How public conflict became the catalyst for profound change, not just in my company, but in my understanding of legacy and leadership. My gaze found Eleanor, who nodded encouragingly. Success is often portrayed as a solitary journey, the lone entrepreneur battling against all odds. But true success, sustainable success, comes from building the right connections, knowing which relationships to nurture, which to transform, and sometimes which to leave behind. I continued my speech, outlining the Ethics in Technology initiative that Eleanor had helped me develop, a set of principles for safeguarding intellectual property, while ensuring technology served human needs first. I spoke about Mitchell Analytics expansion, our new headquarters downtown, and the scholarship program for young women in STEM that I'd established with some of our profits. What I didn't mention publicly was the behind-the-scenes battle we'd waged against Helix Capital, how Eleanor's intel and James's legal strategy had exposed their predatory practices to regulatory authorities. How their attempted infiltration of Mitchell Analytics had ultimately led to federal investigations and the company's restructuring under new management. Some victories were better celebrated privately. As I concluded my remarks to enthusiastic applause, I felt a sense of completion that had eluded me for most of my life. The circle that had begun with public humiliation had transformed into something stronger, more authentic, and unexpectedly healing. The reception afterward was a stark contrast to last year's awkward aftermath. I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations, discussing future projects, and introducing Eleanor to key industry figures. Many were surprised to discover her connection to Pierce Financial, having assumed she was simply a mentor figure in my life. In truth, she had become both business ally and the family elder I'd never truly had. "Your speech was perfect," Eleanor said, joining me at a quiet corner of the bar. "Dignified without being sanctimonious, strategic without seeming calculated." I smiled. "I had a good teacher. You had good instincts. I merely helped you refine them." She sipped her champagne, eyes tracking Meredith across the room where she was engaged in what appeared to be an actual professional conversation with one of our clients. "Your sister continues to surprise me." "Me too," I admitted. I was certain she'd quit within the first month. The job offer that had begun as a strategic move to extract Meredith from Helix's clutches had evolved in unexpected ways. After initially struggling with the concept of regular work hours and accountability, she had gradually found her footing in client relations. Her natural charm, once deployed primarily for personal gain, proved genuinely valuable when channeled toward understanding client needs. She wasn't exceptional at her job, but she was competent. Perhaps the first time in her life she'd achieved even that modest benchmark through her own efforts. "She asked me about advancement opportunities last week," I said, "not demanding a promotion. Actually asking what skills she needs to develop to move up." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Remarkable. And your parents?" "That was more complicated. My father had made genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship, starting with an awkward but heartfelt apology after the Helix situation was resolved. My mother had been less adaptable, maintaining a cool distance that occasionally thawed during family gatherings, but never fully warmed. We had reached a détente of sorts, civil, occasionally cordial, but fundamentally changed. Dad's coming. Around, Mom's being Mom, but they're not here tonight, and that's progress in itself. I don't need their approval anymore." Eleanor nodded approvingly. "The most valuable freedom." Our conversation was interrupted by Alex approaching with a woman I didn't recognize, tall, confident, with keen eyes that assessed me with professional interest. "Vanessa, this is Catherine Zhao from Westridge Innovations. She's been asking about our expansion plans for the Northeast." I extended my hand, but Catherine's attention had shifted to Eleanor. "Eleanor Pierce," she said, with evident surprise. "I didn't expect to see you here." Eleanor smiled coolly. "Catherine, it's been, 5 years since that unfortunate situation with Meridian Technologies?" Something unspoken passed between them, a tension that made me instantly alert. Alex, sensing the shift, smoothly excused himself to greet other guests. "Vanessa is my great-niece," Eleanor explained calmly, "a family connection I've only recently had the pleasure of developing." "How fortunate for you both." Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Vanessa, your company's growth has been impressive. We at Westridge have been following your trajectory with interest." The conversation continued with surface pleasantries, but I could feel an undercurrent I didn't fully understand. When Catherine eventually moved on, I turned to Eleanor questioningly. Catherine Zhao was on Helix Capital's board until their restructuring, she explained quietly. She resigned just before the investigations became public. Now she's at Westridge, which has been aggressively acquiring tech startups with algorithms similar to yours, though less sophisticated. I processed this information quickly. "So Helix's strategy has shifted to Westridge." "It appears so." Their methods are less obvious, more patient, but the objective remains the same. Eleanor's expression was serious. They play the long game, Vanessa. Tonight was reconnaissance. Instead of anxiety, I felt a strange calm. A year ago, this revelation would have sent me into crisis mode. Now it was simply information to be strategically managed. Then we'll play longer, I replied, starting with a careful review of any Westridge connections to our client list or staff. Eleanor smiled with quiet pride. You've come a long way from that slap on stage. As the evening wound down, I found Meredith by the dessert table, looking thoughtful as she nibbled on a chocolate truffle. Congratulations again, she said, and the remarkable thing was that she seemed to actually mean it. The scholarship program is really good, Vanessa. It's going to help a lot of girls like we used to be. We? I couldn't help but ask. Meredith shrugged, a gesture somehow both defensive and vulnerable. I know I didn't struggle like you did, but I had my own stuff. Being the family favorite isn't all it's cracked up to be when it means never having to develop actual skills. The insight surprised me. You're doing well at the company, clients like you, because for the first time in my life, I'm actually trying. She set down her dessert plate. Listen, there's something I need to tell you. I got a job offer last week from Westridge Innovations. My body tensed instantly. What kind of offer? Client Relations Director, East Coast Division. Triple my current salary, company car, the works. She looked at me steadily. They approached me after I handled the Peterson account presentation. Said they were impressed with my understanding of how to translate technical concepts for non-technical clients. What did you tell them? I asked carefully. That I'd think about it, but the thing is... She hesitated. The whole setup felt off. They were too interested in my access at Mitchell Analytics, kept asking casual questions about our development roadmap, client security protocols. It reminded me of... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Helix, I supplied. She nodded. I'm not making that mistake again. I told James about it yesterday. He said to let you know after the ceremony tonight. The revelation stunned me more than Catherine Zhao's appearance. A year ago, Meredith would have jumped at the offer, dazzled by the title and perks, oblivious to the warning signs. Now she was not only recognizing a potential threat, but actively protecting the company against it. Thank you, I said sincerely. That's really good judgment, Meredith. She looked both pleased and embarrassed by the praise. Yeah, well, turns out having to actually earn things teaches you their value. Later that night, as the gala wrapped up, I stood on the ballroom's terrace overlooking the city lights. Eleanor joined me, her expression contemplative. Quite a different ending from last year, she observed. I was just thinking that, I agreed. Last year I was sitting alone at an empty table after everyone left, staring at a text from Meredith threatening that it wasn't over. And now she's warning you about suspicious job offers. Eleanor chuckled softly. Life does take unexpected turns. The night air was cool, carrying the promise of autumn. Below us, the city pulsed with energy, thousands of lights representing countless other stories unfolding in parallel to mine. We need to talk about Westridge, I said, turning to face her directly. If they're implementing Helix's strategy with a more patient approach, we need a counter-strategy that anticipates their moves. Eleanor nodded. I've already begun compiling information, but Vanessa, there's something else we should discuss. Something more personal. Her tone made me curious. What is it? I'm 75 years old, she said matter-of-factly. I've built Pierce Financial from nothing into one of the most respected firms on the East Coast, but I have no children, no direct heirs to continue what I've created. I waited, sensing where this might be heading, but not wanting to presume. Over this past year, I've come to recognize something in you that goes beyond our shared family history or similar experiences with difficult family dynamics. She smiled wryly at the understatement. You have an integrity in your approach to business that's increasingly rare. You understand that success without principles is merely profitable predation. I learned that from you, I pointed out. Perhaps, but you were already oriented in that direction. She turned to look out at the city again. I'd like you to consider joining the board of Pierce Financial, with the possibility of a more significant role in the future. Should you find the work engaging? The offer took my breath away. Pierce Financial was exponentially larger than Mitchell Analytics, a powerhouse in the investment world known for both profitability and ethical standards. I don't have experience in financial services, I said, processing the opportunity. My background is in tech and analytics, which is precisely why you'd bring valuable perspective. Financial services is increasingly driven by algorithms and data analysis. Your expertise would be an asset, not a limitation. She looked at me directly. This isn't charity or nepotism, Vanessa. It's strategic succession planning. You've proven your capabilities this past year, not just in business acumen, but in navigating complex human dynamics. I thought about what this would mean: dividing my time between Mitchell Analytics and Pierce Financial, learning a new industry, potentially stepping into Eleanor's legacy. It was daunting, but undeniably exciting. I'm not asking for an immediate answer, she continued. Take time to consider all aspects. But know that the offer comes with no strings and no expectation that you'd follow my approach precisely. Evolution is necessary for any institution to remain relevant. Thank you, I said finally. I'm honored you'd consider me. Honor has nothing to do with it, she replied with characteristic directness. It's about recognizing capability and character. You've demonstrated both. As we prepared to leave the gala, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year. From public humiliation to professional expansion, from family crisis to unexpected alliance, from isolation to a network of genuine support. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but it had led me to this moment of clarity and possibility. 3 days later, I called a meeting at Mitchell Analytics. Our executive team gathered in the conference room, curious about the urgent summons. I stood at the head of the table, a sense of certainty guiding me. Westridge Innovations has been making strategic moves that suggest they're targeting our intellectual property, I began, outlining what we knew about their recruitment, attempts and market positioning. Rather than simply playing defense, I propose we undertake a significant pivot. For the next hour, I presented a vision that had crystallized over the past 72 hours, expanding Mitchell Analytics' core algorithm beyond logistics into financial technology applications. It was a bold move that would put us in a different competitive space, one where our technology could have even broader impact while being less vulnerable to Westridge's acquisition strategy. This would require significant investment, Alex pointed out. New talent, new infrastructure. I've secured potential funding, I replied, thinking of my conversation with Eleanor that morning, where she'd offered Pierce Financial support for the expansion in exchange for first implementation rights on the fintech applications. But more importantly, it requires us to think beyond our original mission while staying true to our core values. The discussion was vigorous, with concerns raised and addressed, possibilities explored and refined. By the end, there was cautious enthusiasm for the new direction, a direction that would challenge us all but offered tremendous growth potential. As the team filed out, energized by the possibilities, Diane lingered behind. "This is about more than Westridge, isn't it?" she asked perceptively. I nodded. "It's about building something that can't be easily replicated or acquired. Something that reflects values beyond profit margins." A legacy, she said simply. The word resonated. A year ago, legacy had meant family obligation, the weight of expectations and entitlement that had culminated in that public slap. Now it meant something entirely different. The impact of choices made with integrity, the ripple effect of business conducted ethically, the future shaped by principled innovation. That evening I met Eleanor for dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the harbour. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the water, symbolic of the transition underway in both our lives. "I've decided to accept your offer," I told her as we settled at our table. "The board position at Pierce Financial, but I have conditions." Her eyes sparkled with interest. "I would expect nothing less. First, I need flexibility to implement my expansion plan for Mitchell Analytics. Second, I want to establish a joint venture between our companies to develop fintech applications of our algorithm. Third," I hesitated, then continued, "I want to establish a family foundation focused on supporting women entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The first two are business decisions I fully support," Eleanor replied. "The third is more personal. May I ask what prompted it?" I considered how to explain the complex evolution of my thinking. When my mother slapped me on that stage, she was enforcing a family pattern that stretched back generations. The expectation that successful members subsidize the less capable ones without question. It's a pattern that ultimately weakens everyone involved. Indeed, Eleanor agreed, having lived that reality herself. But in breaking that pattern, I don't want to lose sight of genuine responsibility to help others. Not out of guilt or obligation, but from a position of strength and principle. I met her gaze directly. The foundation would operate on merit and potential, not entitlement. It would offer opportunity, not handouts, a different kind of family legacy. Using wealth to create capability rather than dependency. Eleanor nodded, approvingly. I think Margaret and Claudia would be thoroughly confused by the concept. We both laughed, the shared family history now a point of connection rather than division. There's one more thing, I added. I'd like to offer Meredith a position at the foundation. Not running it. She's not ready for that level of responsibility, but working with the recipients, helping them navigate the challenges of starting a business. She has first-hand experience with both failure and the beginnings of legitimate success. Eleanor considered this thoughtfully. It's risky. She's made progress, but it's a calculated risk, I interrupted gently. With appropriate oversight and clear expectations, the past year has shown she's capable of growth when given the right structure. And if she reverts to old patterns, then she faces the consequences, just like anyone else would. I was firm on this point. No special treatment, no family bailouts, just a genuine opportunity to continue her evolution. Eleanor raised her glass in a toast. To breaking destructive patterns while creating constructive ones. To legacy redefined. As we clinked glasses, I felt the final pieces falling into place. The journey that had begun with public humiliation had transformed into something I never could have anticipated. A stronger company, an expanded vision, unexpected alliances, and a new understanding of family that transcended old resentments. Without ignoring hard truths, the slap that had echoed through that ballroom a year ago had been intended to put me in my place, to remind me of family obligation as it had always been defined. Instead, it had set me free to define family, success, and legacy on my own terms. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to the best versions of ourselves, not just professionally, but in the values we choose to embody and the relationships we choose to nurture. My algorithm might eventually become obsolete. My company might someday be surpassed by competitors, but the principles I'd established would endure, rippling outward in ways I couldn't fully anticipate, but could proudly stand behind. That I realized as I looked across the table at the great-aunt, who had become an unexpected mentor and ally, was the only legacy worth building, one that empowered rather than entrapped, that evolved rather than repeated, that transformed pain into purpose and conflict into clarity. The silenced voice had found its power, and the legacy, rewritten by choice rather than obligation, would speak for itself.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.